supposed to be, random. Then it's an AI. So, okay, it looks like it is streaming, guys. Um, Wonderful. Okay, awesome. So it is streaming. So thank you everybody for waiting. I'm just going to say we are live. So I'm actually putting the LinkedIn thing link here, guys, for those of you who are on the Zoom and patiently hung around with me. I appreciate it. Okay, 1 second. And so you can actually post the comments right there. Okay. So hello everybody. I'm Sudha Jamte, and this is weeklywed. This is our global speaker series from Business School of AI, and I get to meet many of you and my students right here on Zoom. And we are streaming this live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And so if you're watching this on LinkedIn, you can post a question, introduce yourself, talk about a topic if it's relevant to what we are talking here. So, you get to connect and learn together. That's the whole idea. And for those of you who have joined here on Zoom, thank you so much. We've already been having a fun conversation on this topic on how to make LLMs or large language models to be inclusive. What does inclusion in LLM mean is the main theme of today. I've been doing a series of LLM webinars on what is LLM, how do they work. I like to take complex technologies and explain them in English. And I work with all of you with a very diverse background so that we can all get together and make AI to work for us, because AI is everywhere in our lives, wherever we are, whatever language we speak, whatever function we work on, whether we code or not, it doesn't matter. So that's the today's team specifically is about inclusion. But to get to that, I was talking about how LLM works and what does that ecosystem looks like. And then we went into this whole thing of, okay, the excitement of LLMs is around chatbots. So I went into like, okay, how do you make the chatbot? What are the pieces of it? I believe that's a much bigger topic. I believe in the fourth webinar series, I've given that. So if you're on YouTube, all of the streams and sits there, so you can follow our YouTube and go watch all the four webinars also if you're new to this topic. But what we are going to talk about is inclusion. So what does inclusion mean? So when I was talking to Yashashwini, who's an AI researcher who joins us from Bangalore, we were talking about multiple languages. And Susanna Raj is here, and she is one of the co-founders of Global South in AI with me. And we started working towards adding inclusion to languages to support more languages in AI. But I wanted to take a step back and think about this from a broader inclusion perspective. First of all, AI has to work for everybody because it's in everybody's life. If you're a business person and you're trying to commercialize this, if it is going to frustrate your customers are not going to use that product. So we have done some research where if the AI is trustworthy and transparent, then it increases engagement of users, and we've kind of shown this empirically. There's been published research, including ours, on that. So one example I'll give you. I've been an early adopter of Alexa voice assistant. There is Siri on my iPhone, and then we have a bunch of Google assistants around our home. And I found that when I got started with Alexa might not understand my accent fully, and over time Alexa did. And I heard that Amazon went on a very concerted effort to make sure that Alexa can understand various different accents for different set of people they were targeting, so that people will continue to use Alexa. And they found that if we continue to use a Amazon product, we will shop more in Amazon. Might have happened, but I ended up using Alexa till she became too intrusive on the kind of data she was collecting, or would proactively like speak up and stuff. I kind of shut that off. But I found that the Google Home doesn't understand my accent enough. And it the way it is designed is it doesn't understand me. It is very presumptuous and basically gives an answer, right? And it starts explaining, go to the app and do this and do that and that kind of thing. So point is, When we're talking LLM is available as text. So we think of it as ChatGPT or chatting. And there are, I wanted to ask Yash, I wanted to ask you all here, how many languages are there in the world? Any guess? And if you have a precise number and you've already Googled it, please don't put it in here. But anybody else, if you're really guessing, how many languages are there in the world? And there's no bad answer, guys. We all think of some number. So in my class at Barcelona Technology School yesterday, I had asked about how many languages, and people are saying 500, and one student said maybe 2,000. The number is bigger than that. What do you think is that number? How many languages? And everybody who's here is the one who gets to have a chance to tell us, right? And if you're here on LinkedIn with me, you can make a guess and you can tell us. That's okay. Oh, I do see some people on LinkedIn.
I'm guessing 10,000. This is Adam at Stanford.
Yes. Hi, Adam. Okay, I
Hi,
think
Sudha.
that, yes, hi, thank you for joining. So the 10,000 number is a little too big. So what
Oh,
it did,
too bad.
5,500.
There should be that many.
Say 5,500.
Okay, 5,500. That's what
50,
Susan says.
55,
5,000.
5,000. That's awesome.
5,500. Yeah.
5,500, very precise.
Okay. I have no idea, but sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to get a range on, what are we thinking here? Are there that many languages? How are we thinking about this from our world, right? Um, so anybody here on LinkedIn, I see a bunch of people. LinkedIn actually shows me the number. It doesn't show the people unless they make themselves visible, but I see some people. So if you want to make a guess, you're welcome, because I'm going to give you the answer in a minute. And this goes to, credit goes to Yash for actually bringing this. Uh, so there are 7,139 languages that are spoken in the world, and this is still a little dated, right? And a lot of languages are endangered indigenous languages. And Yash, do you want to tell us how this number changed and where this, who publishes this? How do we know this precise number?
We have Ethnologue, and they are the people who work with languages. They track all the languages all over the world. When I first saw, it was 7,139. And today, when I see, it is 7,168. So they have learned so many languages, nearly 30 languages, it's learned nearly. If we go to Ethnologue, we see the families of languages. We see the languages all over the world. And we also get to see the codes. Using codes, we can learn about the languages in that.
So they track all the languages of the world and they kind of catalog them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's the best word that can describe it. Ethnologue.
Oh, because of that, it's called catalog. Okay. So I'm just showing that. Say thank you so much, Yash. So I'm just showing, and for us, when we're talking about LLM and understanding LLM and how to provide support for all possible languages, if your language is not included, and there are new languages being born, so understanding the family of languages is important, and I'll tell you in a minute. So this gives a list of family of languages, and it's very, very fascinating. Okay, so I'm going to stop the sharing. I'm coming back. So how many languages do you think, and you cannot ask ChatGPT and then answer this, you can tell me how many languages are there in the LLM world, like when LLM was built, how many languages were supported? Okay, how many languages were used to build the large language models? When they built large language models, how many languages did they use? Like technology industry is supposed to be very diverse with a lot of people, and they built language models, large language models. So they said, oh, let's take all the data from the internet and don't have to ask permission, but we will get the data and public data, and we will feed it to to create these large language models. That was the foundation models. And they created it, right? How many languages did they use? And then they said, okay, we are ready. Now you can build chatbots on top of it. You can build machine translation. You can do more things, right? We've discussed the various applications and what's involved. So how many languages were used to train the LLMs originally?
I think it was English primarily, but it may be less than 5 languages, I think. But I think it's primarily English.
Good. So they started out with English, and they have about 7 languages that they fed core data. So that's the base, right? But it's predominantly English, and within English, it's not just, it's one kind of English. So it's not all the different accents and all the different dialects and American English and British English and various different English. And then when you say new languages are being formed in the world, people use language to communicate with each other. Whether technology is going to give it to them or not, they're not going to stop using languages, right? And so there's a language called Hinglish, which is Hindi speakers. About 350 million of them use English script, the ABCD, the Latin script, to talk with each other. But they're speaking in Hindi, but they're chatting. So when you bring technology to a country, they're going to adopt it, and then they're going to refurbish it to themselves. So that's what happened. So English, 350 million people are chatting in what looks like English, but it's not English words. The words have meaning in Hindi, and it's called Hinglish. Like that, there is Singlish, and there are several of these cross languages that are new languages of the world, right? So there were only 7. None of this was in the radar, right? And then if you go to ChatGPT today and ask ChatGPT how many languages it understands, how many languages does it understand? You'll have to give me, this is a guess game, so you have to do it fast. So they started with English, then total 7 languages were what they got the basic translations, right? And then the number from the 7 is 7,000, what's Yash? 163? 69? 63?
Yeah, 168.
168, okay. So that's where the disconnect is. I wonder if the people who are working on this even stop to think how many languages are there in the world. I had like an existential crisis the other day. I was just thinking, when I was researching this, I was trying to learn a few more languages, and I come from India, so I know a few of Indian languages. I can understand some of the other languages that I've not learned because they belong in the same family. And then I'm learning Spanish, and then I found there are like four versions of Spanish. Duolingo teaches me one that is closer to Mexico. And then I went to Spain, and it's like my language choice of words were very different. And I'm trying to learn Italian because they said Italian overlaps with Spanish for 86% of the time, and it doesn't, at least from what I'm learning. So I just had this existential crisis. There are 7,100 and some. At that point, I thought 7,000 plus languages. And then there was some stats on an average person can learn 10 languages in their lifetime. So I was like, how tiny am I if I can learn only 10 languages, which means I can interact with such a tiny part of the world. That means my existence on earth is so tiny, and my contribution or interaction is so tiny. So that's why AI needs to talk every possible language that I can interact with everybody, right? So what is the number of languages that ChatGPT is talking? So ChatGPT, if you ask ChatGPT how many languages you know, it will say 95. And then one of the first efforts that came in this translation, so the way language, what we saw with LLMs, right? That LLMs are large language models. They keep language trained in their brains as neural networks and understand the connection between the different words, so that when you start talking to it, it is not just recalling the existing words, it is taking the words, understand, and it's learning, and it is generating new text, and it is talking to us, trying to talk to us almost perfectly in the semantic of the language we are talking to. And so all in its brain is connection neurons of words and their relationship with each other. And so that is embeddings, and it is made and stored in its brain as numbers. This is what we did when we did the earlier webinar. So you can go back to our YouTube or to Business School of AI, where we archive all this at weeklywed, and go watch that if you're new to this concept. But the way the AI is trained is using words. and then it stores as numbers in its head. And so there are tools that make it happen. That's much we should know when we are thinking of new languages. So now coming back out of, so it doesn't seem, it seems very hard to take the training data of every possible language and then go train it. So that's why when they did this for 7, so they started with English, then they said, okay, let's take French data, train it. Let's take Italian, I don't think Italian was in the original language. They had German, and then they did that. So they did that for like 7 languages. And then China has a whole bunch of AI on their own, and they have Mandarin and various other dialects of Chinese languages. And so it has natively it understands more Mandarin, right? So that movement is happening separately, right? But to build, and then now I know there is a large language model that was created from Middle East, and there is movement to create it for Arabic. And so, but creating large language models is going to cost a lot of GPU power, and it's going to burn a lot of trees. And so people are not trying to build base models, but saying, okay, whatever has somebody built, why don't we build on it? So they do this thing called transfer learning. So where in the brain of the LLM, it has understood one language. Now you give it a transfer learning capability to go learn another language without giving the new language. So you don't create content, so much huge volume of another language, but a little bit of content of the other language. And then you do transfer learning. So this is, it was done by Google first, called zero-shot learning, where they took the existing LLMs, which understood 7 languages, and made it understand 100 languages. And it was not even trained in those 100 languages natively, right? And they were like very proud of it, which is a big feat from the scale of it. Then Facebook came and said, Meta, and said, hey, we want to be in this game. And so they came up with something very presumptuous name called No Language Left Behind. Out of the 7,100 language, they said no language left behind, and they made this machine translation to 200 languages. So best of my understanding, we are at the 200 language level today. And then ChatGPT came, everybody woke up to it. So we have a lot of people who are trying to create language translation for their world. So Rabiu, is it all right if I call on you, because you're working on machine translation for low resource languages? So the term low resource language means that centered on English, because the LLM was first built on English. From an English perspective, that language is not available for translation. So you don't have a translation data of that language to English available in written form. And so that language is called low resource language. That might be a richest language in the world with a lot of literature in their language. They might be singing, dancing, and living their life in that language, which many people do. But it is called low resource language because there's not enough English translation. But now let's talk to Rabiu about his low resource language work. Rabiu, do you want to tell us about your work on, come on. If you want, you can come on camera, or you can just come speak, that's fine. But this is all getting recorded, so it's fine. Just be aware of that.
No, let me just speak like this.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm working on low resource language machine translations.
Okay.
And translations between English and Hausa. There are some translation between English and Hausa, but I do consider, because my first work was name entity copying translation.
Okay.
Name entity copying for machine translation between English and Hausa. When doing that particular work, I now discovered that copying that name entity, it does not also make sense, because there are some name entities that do require transliterations. Then that is one of the limitations that I do discover on my previous work. Then I now do another project, or the one that I'm currently doing it now, which is a resource sufficient for name entity transliteration with cross-lingual word embedding for machine translation based on supervised and semi-supervised machine learning. So doing that, I now discover that still we do not have sufficient data for these transliterations. I now go based on machine rule, I discover the transliteration of some of the name of organization, country, and whatsoever. There is a transliteration between that English language and Hausa language. I now extract it, make a dictionary for it. When I build the translation, it go through that dictionary to discover if there is a transliteration between such kind of words. If there is, then it will not make the transliteration. If there is not that transliteration, then the word is going to make use of it as the way it is. So I now built it and then trained the model and did everything. I now discovered that the blue that I have been discovered is more efficient compared to the previous translation that was being made available. So up to now, I did not publish the work. I'm under some kind of literature review correction or whatsoever. That is it what I'm doing currently.
That's amazing. It's funny because Hausa was one of the first languages that I heard when this was at that 100 language that Google had come just before that, right? When it was only 7 languages. I had a student who wanted Hausa translation. She wanted Hausa to Arabic translation for her aunt in Nigeria when she was traveling to Dubai, and Hausa didn't exist. And she kind of went through that whole cycle. And so I'm happy to see that. So what is the translation tree from where Hausa comes? What is the root of Hausa's language family?
Yeah, Hausa still it is a low resource language because we don't have a standard tools for training the translations. It is only a kind of fine tuning of the previous work to see that we make that translation, but there is no a standard tools for translating Hausa language. So it is just considered as a low resource language. And also apart from it, there is no qualitative and quantitative data set for Hausa language up to now. Because considering a large of data set that is no qualitative, it's still being considered as low resource language according to another research. But still in Hausa language, we don't have a sufficient data that we are going to consider it as a high resource language. It's just be considered as a low resource language.
That's amazing. Awesome. So thank you so much. I will call on you maybe another time. You can show your model and your work when you're ready to, ready to share that with the world. So that'll be awesome. And I'm part of the Masakane community on Slack, and there is so much work going for various different languages from African countries. So it's amazing to see that energy and what's happening. So coming back to the inclusion piece. So when you're building out and you want to do something in using LLM, you want to make it work for the world, right? That's the inclusion. So the other thing I realized is when I was thinking about this, I was talking about accents and understanding voice. So there is research going on voice to make the world, everybody's accents and voice tones to be understood by AI. The language as in text that we are doing, text to speech, text to images that is being generated is needed in text, right? And then you have the translation itself from one language to another. In all of them is what we are thinking. Then as I was preparing for this, I was just thinking, what about Braille? What about sign language? And I could not find anything for LLM in Braille. And from my minimum research, I got educated that Braille is not a language. Braille is a system of writing, and there is no one standard. There is some kind of standard evolving, but there is still some different kind of Braille, because Braille is writing for languages. And so it is, for different languages, if they have something beyond the 26 letters of English, then that is also needed to be translated in Braille. So that is also a work in progress. So if I'm just trying to find my notes on this. So if any of you are working on Braille, I'm curious about it. I would like to learn that. Because one of my passions is self-driving cars, and one of the very first self-driving bus that was launched by IBM in Las Vegas, they actually included added inclusion for visually impaired. So if I get into I did share this when I went into Waymo, and it talks to me, right? And then I drive and I just sit, and I know when I'm getting in, when I'm getting out, and it gives me some instructions. It's talking to me, right? When it stops, it's a complete pause and silence. That's not normal as humans in our world, and it feels very strange, right? And in the bus, what they did is they said, okay, then we should be able to allow to talk to visually impaired people. So it was adding voice to them, right? But if the person is blind, then how are they going to communicate back? It needs to speak Braille. They didn't have Braille even at that time. And so I was very surprised. I could not find any research on large language models to Braille. And so if you're working on it, you're aware of it, please tell me. I would like to be included in that. The other thing is sign language. There's a sign language is a fully developed language as a language, right? That the linguists would agree on. And there's American Sign Language, Brazilian Sign Language, and there's few of them. And for that, I believe we have a bunch of translation. So there is one, like I mentioned, Susanna Raj and her work at Global South in AI. I wanted to call on Susanna, if that's okay. Susanna, I want to see whether we can tell people a little bit about what we are doing, at least in this, the bunch of work that has come with the new researchers we have onboarded at Global South in AI. Last year, I remember there was something on English translation. There was work on Kenyan, Nigerian. There was something on sign language, right? A bunch of
also Bari language
and Bari, I think the beginnings of Bari language data set was created last year at Global South in AI. So tell us a little bit about what you're seeing. And this year we decided that language is not, especially talking of LLMs, the foundation model itself is support of the language, but that the language is fine-tuned to do something for you. And that fine-tuning is what the entire business world is doing. They're saying, we wanted to do customer support. We wanted to do lead generation. We wanted to do whatever, right? And sing a song. So they're giving a small data set to do the supervised learning. And that is where the crux of what we can make the LLM do for us comes in.
Yeah.
And then again, it is different from different. So talk to us. What are you seeing and what is happening in the Global South
This
in
year,
AI?
our call was on generative AI and whether how that has been used in large language models. And we had an interesting group of authors from all around the world, submit their proposals, their abstracts. And we have a good amount of representation from the African continent and also from our Indian countries, Indian languages, mostly represented by Yash, who's here and along with a team.
Yash had a lot of submissions, and Yash is one of our program chairs. So one of the things she silently did was she went and told and mentored people all around her. And there are a lot of people who have come in and who are new to research, who are new to language research, and they don't know, the world of new rips and everything, but they were like, can we really do it? And she's like, yes, here's how you submit an abstract, and she's guided them on the posters. And
yes, that's
the whole
actually
thing.
Yes, that's actually one way in which researchers usually bring on junior researchers. We actually those who are senior researchers, help the junior researcher get published by adding your name to an abstract or paper. And I'm very proud of Ash for doing that this year for so many of our colleagues and peers. And so many of the submissions, they shared too many submissions, but some of them did get in.
Too much work for us. I can see where you're coming from, right? Because Susanna being a researcher, her bar is high. For me being a teacher, I want to onboard people, educate people, encourage people. So it makes me very sad when we have to reject a public with a poster or a submission. But there is a standard of international standard, and we are bringing these people to new RIPS. So we can't, Susanna would not let me bring that bar down at all. So that's not an option.
So out of all the rejections, she did get in a couple of research papers in there, and you will be amazed at some of them and the problems that they're trying to solve in that industry, and especially in large language models. And there is actually one paper, I forgot the name of the author, but he is actually proposing small language models and the use of small language models instead of large language models, which is now an upcoming area of research. And he's proposing the benefits of that. And there is another one that is actually
trying to share the names of authors. We can
sure.
So these are going to be published. So the way research happens is you publish and it shows up first time in one place, right? That's when it's published. So all these posters will be published and they will do the poster sessions in New Rips next week in New Orleans, right? And some of them are virtual also, so we get the global people coming in. But I wanted to show the authors. So if that is a recall for you to see who those people are, sing their praise away. I'm happy for that.
Yeah, so I mean, you can see some familiar faces, and that's us on the top, because we will actually have our own poster. Pariya will also be having her own poster. Pariya is one of our program chairs, and she is going to be doing a summary poster, I believe, of our work so far for the last 2 years. And I think that's going to be very informative. And Yash, of course, will be joining our other colleagues and our co-researchers and will be presenting on our paper, on our poster, and also giving a talk, I believe, on the very upcoming new area of research called machine unlearning.
Yes.
So that's super exciting. So I'm looking forward to that, to actually learning more about what machine unlearning is. I come from a cognitive science background where we do study unlearning behavior, unlearning a thought process, unlearning and anything that we have learned throughout our childhood, and we know how that works. But now the technical industry has picked up that area and now is doing machine unlearning, which I'm trying to see what the parallels are between the two. And I don't think I will remember the names of the authors, but I'm pretty sure that there are like so many interesting case studies that people have put forward. There is one on actually cancer research. This like, it's not only just when you think of language, people are taking it to new heights and saying, it's not just language research in specific to voice assistance or, Google Home assistance, but they are actually taking it and solving real use cases, real problems around the globe, and trying to bring, inclusion and diversity into the landscape.
So
And
I want to ask, pause and call attention to that. So when we say we are adding inclusion and we are adding so many languages, it's very easy to tune out and say, okay, I don't know about these languages, or and they don't care enough, or I have other things that is my priority. But what I find fascinating is, especially since I'm in Silicon Valley and I have all these enthusiastic technologists who want to build things and build tech and they love it. And if you build something and you're sitting here and you're thinking about, oh, I want my vacuum cleaner to come and run around and clean my house, and want my Uber to just drop me off, and you're thinking about applications that is to your world, right? Similarly, when we say diversity, we are talking about different people who are in tech in the room with us to add the use cases, to add the design for us again, still, right? But then when you give this out to the world, so suppose you're saying LinkedIn gives us the option to go look for jobs, and it connects people with each other, business colleagues. Now I'm connected with so many people from around the world. I find that there is somebody who's doing a chatbot in Spanish for Mexico, for non-educated people, meaning I shouldn't say that, but they are people who are speaking Spanish, but they are not speaking English, is not the non-educated version, right? That's what we would say when you do the machine translation. We are talking about people who are actually not educated. They are doing low-level jobs, and they still want to find. So it could be like a McDonald's equivalent and wants to hire somebody. Where will they find it? It's still a cost for them. And so, but they will speak Spanish and they want to chat in Spanish and do some filtering, and they've built a chatbot. And then they found that all the existing LLM models and the APIs from all the tech worlds didn't help them in Spanish. And Spanish is one of the first 7 languages supported, right? And so they had to start building the tools like Rabia was talking about, and they ended up doing that. But what is fascinating in what you're saying is, everybody in the world is not waiting for somebody else to build the tech for them, right? So they're saying, we want to solve a problem and we want to go do that. So we saw that integrity of Nigerian election was one from last year that was in the language posters that got accepted. Are you seeing something like that? What did you mean by the cancer research one? What is jumping at you that is applications of generative AI in the world? That is not a very
there is like, in the healthcare industry, it's the healthcare industry itself is trained. The people themselves are trained in the English language. That's how all their studies are done. So it's very hard to change something that has been several hundred years old, and then to come back and say, oh, you should be more inclusive, but it's not possible. So now we have translators, interpreters at major hospitals. That is what I mean in developing countries. We have those options. If you go to the ER, somebody will call you an interpreter if you are unable to speak in English. And sometimes those interpreters in the US, if you're not able to speak English, or you speak only Spanish, or you speak Vietnamese, or you speak another language and you don't know.
You know something, I have to call out Stanford on this. So I had gone to emergency to Stanford. Nothing really emergency. I was okay. And I had to wait. And they kept coming because it was a long wait in emergency room, and they would come, and they didn't want to put us in these triage rooms. So periodically they would come, and they have this little mobile unit by which they will check our pulse and stuff, right? Minimum thing. And so we're all in this big waiting room area. Then these little trolleys come, and this person comes, and they kept doing this every few hours, right? 3 times I had people show up and start speaking Spanish with me because they just thought I was a Mexican person. And I was like, in emergency, so tired, want to go home. And the funny thing is, the first time I actually was very happy because I'm learning Spanish on Duolingo. And so I was like, they said, ¿Cómo estás? And I replied back. And then I realized, second time I realized they're discriminating me.
Yeah, true that it can go both ways, right? You could be discriminated thinking you belong to one group of people, and then also that's another group of people being discriminated at the same time. But the thing is, we do have interpreters. I know they will always ask you, and it's kind of, I don't know if it's a law or it's a mandatory requirement that they will ask you, do you need an interpreter? Is the English your primary language? They will ask that. And interpreters are I know some people waiting in the ER, and their interpreters are no show because they are also in high demand, right?
Yeah.
So this person, I believe it was colorectal cancer that they wanted to do a research, and they were like, I believe the language was Kannada. So they wanted an interpreter service, a generative AI, chatbot or something that actually translates what the doctor is saying. As it pertains to this particular disorder, they want to train the data set on that particular disorder, and then train this generative AI chatbot to actually converse and, give all the details on how to prevent or what kind of treatments the doctor is giving, and, to translate that back to the person who speaks only that particular language. So that's an interesting use case because I know interpreters are not available even in a developed country like US, that we don't have for every single patient that comes in, we don't have one.
Yeah.
So it's good to have something like that where AI is used in a way that is actually helping humanity. And, I find that, being inclusive, even though there's a lot that's going on that's wrong with AI, but these are all the use cases that makes you feel very proud of that we are bringing these things to the global stage and giving these people the exposure that they need. And I know Yash also brought something about helping blind people, I believe, right? You had a proposal on that. Why don't you tell us a little bit? I know you will have your whole stage there, and you will be able to present, but just share one or two sentences on that.
Yeah, I want to tell about 2 things. So the first one is borderline schema therapy for rural Indian women. So that is in Canada, and there is a chatbot that chats with women who do not know how to read and write. It chats in their native language and gets the information about the mental illness and gives them the information about the mental illness. So there is something called schema therapy for this borderline illness. It tries to give the maladaptive schemas to them in Kannada. It identifies, that's a piece of intelligence, and gives to them in Kannada. That's the language AI. And that is one of the proposals. The other proposal was Brush for the Blind. I'm very passionate about it. And I would want to see it live in 2024, where a blind person can input their thought into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT can give the output, or Stable Diffusion can give the image, and that image goes to a website where they can sell it. This is for monetization of the blind artworks. Really passionate about both of these, and I want to see them live in 2024.
That's
Okay,
awesome.
good.
So
Good.
Yash, since we do not have Braille for LLMs yet, so I'm guessing that they will talk by voice, right? The blind person, the visually impaired person will talk by voice to the LLM, and then it generates the artwork, right?
Here there is different pieces of AI that is coming into picture. So the first piece is the taking the input. How do we take the input? Do they know how to talk? If they know how to talk, what is the language that they know how to talk? Do they know full-fledged English or full-fledged Kannada? They will not know. They may know only how to convey through Braille. So there is a portal which takes in the input through Braille, through Kannada or English to the level that they know. And that's how we make it.
That's
So it's
awesome.
Braille to voice and then back to voice
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it is voice. The output will be voice. And here we are considering the artworks using Stable Diffusion so that they can put it on the website automatically. The AI puts it automatically on the website. So that is not an intelligent piece of work that will simply put it on the website. But here the crux is all about languages. How do you understand a blind person?
And I remember Yash was trying to show in class yesterday at the Barcelona Technology School that AI can generate images, and the text to image, she did a cat, and it came with a beautiful cat which was very happy after drinking milk, right? It was very smirky cat. And so we're like, look at it, AI can generate images, and people were like, whoa, right? And then she said, two hands, something like this she drew, right? Like this, two hands reaching out to each other, like, nice peace kind of thing. And you know how hands is the hardest thing for generative AI, so it made so many hands with so many like one hand with a gazillion fingers like this, and it got caught creating
You
fake
know,
images.
whenever I see the hands of all the AI generated images, I feel a little bit happier because as artists, the hands are the hardest part for you to learn to draw. So there's like a lot of training that goes into drawing hands and drawing fingers, drawing these shapes and all of that. And we don't get it right. And now, like, I'm so happy that AI also cannot get it right.
That is so beautiful. Okay, I think we are reaching the end of the hour. Do you want to tell people about Susanna? Can you tell us about NeurIPS, what to expect, and where people can sign up? Especially if people are coming to NeurIPS, we want to see you. Our goal is to bring this set of new authors and connect with you out at NeurIPS, right? Because you're sitting and working on research, and this would be great collaboration. That's the beauty of research, right? That we can build on each other's work. So where are we going to be? Tell us more.
So if you are coming, if you are already, coming to NeurIPS for, to present your paper, or you're coming there to support someone, or you're just coming there as a trip to visit this conference for the first time, here is a link. I know Sudha will share it in the chat, and we will also share it in all our live stream channels that you can sign up. We want to see
I'm going to show that in
the sign up of your we want to get that information so that we can contact you afterwards and invite you to our workshop. And we have a lineup of amazing speakers at Global South in AI workshop.
Oh, we have that here. We have that. So I'm sharing the Eventbrite. This is on Monday, December 11th.
Yes.
At NeurIPS in New Orleans. and they have these affinity group workshops. There's a bunch of things happening, and NeurIPS is humongous, and thousands of events happening. So if you go to NeurIPS site and look for Global South in AI, you'll find us. And ours is, it's not from 9 to 12, it is from 11 to 2 in the local time there, from 11 o'clock in the morning on the here, the timing is right here, so 11 to 2. So we open up and we will show some of the authors who are going to join in remotely during a session. And then we have this amazing one from Roxy Stimson. She's an executive in F5. She's talking about, if you're working on building LLMs, how do you do this in a distributed cloud, in a very secure cloud, agnostic to the variety of different LLM APIs that you're going to use. It's solid tech talk, but you need it if you're going to create enterprise scale LLM. And then we have one called DEI GPT, which is about using GPT with all its limitation to add diversity and inclusion. That is from Kanane Holder. That's amazing. I'm excited to hear that. And our own Yash is going to give us machine unlearning. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. And there's one from John, right, on
Yes,
on
climate change.
and
Yes.
climate and impact on climate. And then some of you missed hearing this quantum computing talk from Elisa Torres Derne from Chile, because she had some audio trouble. So she's graciously agreed, and she's going to do this Girls in Quantum. She's founded this Girls in Quantum Computing, and she's going to teach us quantum computing. And John Havens is a force in this whole sustainability world. And he's going to talk about climate change and LLM. So we want to do this without cutting too many trees, and we want to do this right. Is there hope when we do it? Susanna is working with John on this whole sustainability initiative, so she might have the answer. I don't know. So I'm excited. So that is at NeurIPS on Monday, December 11th. And I have a very compulsive need to do live stream, as you guys can see. I do the live stream for this event. Whoever does it, like Paria and Yash, are involved in organizing and doing more. And I get to do the live stream and come and party here. And so I'm going to break some rules and see how I can live stream.
Yes, and we are going to have all the poster sessions from all our authors. We have 24 accepted posters, and we have, I think, many more authors in each one of them.
Yeah.
And I think we do have an author here with us, other than Yash, who's authored many posters. Sneha. Sneha, why don't you say a few words about what your paper, your poster is about?
Hi, Sneha.
Hi. Actually, I am picking my daughter from her school. Can you give me a few minutes? I'm on the way, actually.
Yeah. No problem. So that's the beauty of it. When you add so much diversity and people, it's very easy to forget. I was talking to one of my friends the other day. We are all like AI, right? When you start training, and Susanna doesn't like us comparing ourselves to technology as if we are computers as if we are AI. So now I've got into the space of thinking of myself as like, am I supervised learning or not? And so when you start building a recommender system, they start off with no information, and they say like, okay, we have information about young white male, and then we will use that data and build the model and go talk to customers, and the customer says, no, that's not right. You start collecting more information, fill in the gaps, and the AI gets more educated. So the AI, when it starts talking to you, it has limited knowledge from wherever it is coming, and you don't know what that is. And so I had my eye doctor look at my eyes and say, oh, you have this so much percentage of going blind. I was like, no, I don't like it. And then I said, what is your data trained on? Is it on people? Is it on women? Is it on Southeast Asian? And they didn't have anything. So I took the same information to a doctor in India, and he says, don't worry. Right? It is like, it's not on the same data. So it's like how it is training. That's how we are talking to each other. So it's very fascinating for me to see how we are going to be bringing this diverse set of conversations, diverse set of perspective, and people coming from different worlds, thinking of blind people talking Kannada, right? Even when you say blind person and they're talking, and somebody else might sit somewhere else and they might think something differently. And I think the fun part of it for me and Susanna, and I'm speaking for you, is we are bringing different worlds. So we are not just bringing Silicon Valley, since we come from Silicon Valley, but what Pariya is going to present about our experience in the last 2 years, and we're very proud of this. I'm very proud of my team and my colleagues here. In 2 years, last year when we went, it was just me and Susanna. And Susanna still had to make sure that she was holding this high on double-blind peer reviews and how we do this research acceptance. So it's not just a workshop and happy party, which I would like to do too. But the thing I think I feel very amazed about is there are different pockets in the world. They are not waiting for anybody to build anything for them. Everybody in the world is learning AI in some form, right? And there's a bunch of people who are left behind, and that is Susanna's calling to bring them into the AI world. So she has her own startup doing that. But there are people from various countries who are using AI, who are filling the gaps. If AI doesn't understand what they want, it's all right. They use what is given to them, and then they build out. So I think we have Abhinaya Mahendran, who is also joining us, but unfortunately she can join only virtually, who is working on Tamil language. And Abhinaya had spoken here at weeklywed. And Tamil language is not natively supported. It's a very Asian language, and it's my mother tongue too. And so there's a lot of literature and poetry and everything in there, but it's considered low resource languages. That just bugs me, the thought of it. Right, but it is not available intuitively in ChatGPT. So Abhinaya is working with a group on creating the tools necessary to create that cross-lingual translation to make that happen. And she's come up with a poster that got accepted that is going to be there. But what I find fascinating is there are pockets of people in different parts of the world. And I think the languages of Africa and the work that is being done there is like a best kept secret. It just blows my mind, like Rabi was talking. It just blows my mind how brilliant they are and how they understand their language complexity of the various family trees of various thousands of languages within Africa. And within the African country, across a continent, across the different countries. And then they're trying to create some tools to bring it to mainstream. So I think that is going to be the fun part for me, to bring people who have different realities of what they want to solve for with AI, what languages they want to support, what they want the language to do, is the biggest piece. That was a big aha for me. So is there any surprise that you're looking forward to, or what is your big excitement in going to New Rips this year?
Yeah, I think my biggest excitement is to actually see how much of a support that we have received so far within the global community itself. I mean, last year, as you said, it was just you and me. And then we had 12 languages represented, which I'm very proud of. And that's from 8 countries or something, I believe, and 12 languages. And now this year, I haven't looked at the count of languages, but I know it's actually more 24, abstracts, and each one, I think we try to go with a different language. So it's basically more representation of languages and authors.
Yeah.
And ours was a much more open call this year than last year's. But the support that we have received is tremendous. I mean, we have grown in how much people are coming. Even at last year's event, we saw people coming and saying this is a great idea, and it's a missing conversation. It's a missing group that you are representing. And now that support has grown tremendously. I mean, we really are representing the global South, and I want to stay true to that mission statement, saying, that we are truly a representation of the global South authors and their concerns and their struggles, and everything has to be put on a global stage. And that is what we are doing this year. Both the negative and the positive impact, we are showing it on the global stage. And some of our authors are managed to come this year in person, and that itself is a huge accomplishment, because there's so many barriers to equity, just travel expenses, and just the time.
Getting visa. Based on what country you're from, it's next to impossible. Yes. After the backlog from COVID to get the visa. And New Rips is trying to make amends on that so that they could understand the problem to go help for next year at least. So I'm
So
very
in
grateful.
a way, we are making them understand a lot of problems that they were not even aware of. There's
Yeah.
visa problems. There is, even after you get the visa, there's other travel problems, issues, and all of those things we are bringing to their attention.
Yeah.
And in a way, we are making that whole community also more inclusive.
Yeah.
And that's what we are doing with our presence. So it's what's more important to me is not how many seats are filled. I am one of those people that does not care about that. And I know my other program chair here is very much into how many seats are filled and how many people are coming, what are the metrics. And that's a very Silicon Valley thing to do, to measure by metrics, to measure your success by metrics that are quantifiable. So this is what I heard, from the first time I started in this AI. Feel like, are there quantifiable metrics to your research? And I'm like, what?
No, so to that point, I would say one thing coming from an analytics, data loving geek perspective, that what you measure is what you manage. It's a quote, not mine. But I have learned that if you focus on a certain metric, you will optimize towards that metric. That's how we work in Silicon Valley, right? So you say we want to get more users coming in, then we're going to get more people coming in. It's acquisition. If we say we want to create more engagement, then we are going to make people, once people come, however they come, how many ever number come, we are going to create an experience so it's delightful and they stay. And that especially is important today because many of the technologies we are using are trying to hold our attention. So we are in this what is called attention economy, where they want us to stay. So they send feeds and notifications and keep us, right? Once you go to shop on Amazon or any of those sites, they will keep showing 20 other people are buying this and only 2 more items are less. And they do that because they don't want you to leave while you're thinking about it. And you're thinking, oh, well, my brother likes this color and should I buy this or not? It's a very personal, qualitative decision as you're thinking, but they want you to complete the sale and they're measuring what is the time spent of the average user on the site. And I would say if they did not give me the variety of color palette that I could pick the right one that I want for my brother's t-shirt, say, right? Then it goes back. If I spend too much time, maybe I'm searching for things on the site. Maybe they're not getting me what they want. So they have to go fix it. Right. That's kind of a reflection. So that's how they do that. But I do find that if we focus on a metric, we narrow fix the problem. So that is also the other side of it. So if we said we want to bring people, last year we had one person from Latin America on adding humor to Spanish language. I remember that paper, right? That was the poster. And then we had nobody from India, I think, right? We did not have, or we had English. English one was the one from
and
India.
we had also Marathi.
Okay, but I could not reach the AI for Bharat, which is the big powerhouse, which is working on transliteration for 16 Indian languages. And if you're from AI for Bharat, I still would like to work with you. We've not been able to reach them. And it's a group that's working in India on Indian languages. But I got so immersed into the whole African languages and researchers and Lanfrica and all that stuff, right? And a whole bunch of researchers from US who are working on multilingual LLMs. And so I just found, and I still feel like we've not reached enough of, we still have a bunch of Southeast Asia this time, but we've still not reached into Asia. So after our call was closed, I found that in Korea, there is something happening and the Korean government is funding some initiatives on that. There is work on Japanese language and Google works on Japanese language and added extensive translation because they will not allow you to do any business in English. It has to be in Japanese. And there are other people asking for that, right? And I found this whole bunch of education initiative that's happening for LLMs in Vietnam. And so I feel like we've kind of extended our geographic reach because that was one of my internal metric, saying I want to reach more. And this year, I still feel like I need to reach more Southeast Asia. And I feel like we have not gone into Latin America. We've not reached indigenous languages anywhere at all. Even, even within US, there are many indigenous languages. And there's an indigenous in AI group within NeurIPS. So
Yes,
we
they
could
are
go,
representing that. Yes.
They are at least representing, so that's covered, but there is an intersectionality with us. And then the other thing I found is there were some posters which were about gender, right? Gender bias across languages. That's the beauty or curse of all languages, that patriarchy has its claw in it. So do you want to talk about the gender bias in language? Because we did a poster last year and we are going to bring
We did a poster last year, and maybe we
for
will
that.
build upon that this year as well on gender bias, because that impacts all languages and all sectors. And it's also a thing, like, there are like, the reason I say is that, what gets measured, gets managed, but there is a whole line of research that says, emotions don't get managed if you measure it. So emotions have to be met. They cannot be measured. They cannot be managed. So there are like
there is work from tech to measure emotions too, and you hate that whole emotions.
Yes.
AI is not science, so
yeah,
we'll
to
pass that.
measure somebody's emotions, measure how sad you are and how happy you are, and to see if we can manage that. It's there, but that same philosophy is not applied to AI equally, even though they say, we have to have quantifiable metrics. That we live in Silicon Valley, and the ChatGPT, the whole OpenAI data set was trained in Iowa. And many of you who are, like me, I need the US map to see where Iowa is. Other than that, I don't know where it is. Or it doesn't even come into the picture of technology, or, a cosmopolitan city like, like the New York, or, our own San Francisco. It doesn't come into the picture like that. It's a farming community, and they are taking the water that is there to train ChatGPT, and it is almost destroying that town, that state.
Yeah.
And that is not measured.
So
the same dialogue was used against them to say.
Sorry, sir. I need to interrupt on something very important. So it is not that the Iowa people are getting the job of training the AI, and San Francisco people.
No, only the data centers are there.
The data centers are in Iowa, done by Silicon Valley people, using up the water that goes to Iowa farms, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make that clear, because we love the Iowa people if they're going to do tech with us. We love everybody who will do tech.
They have no idea that I don't think any Iowan farmer, actually knows that, about ChatGPT or using ChatGPT for their farming. And kudos to Yash again for bringing the farming angle to one of our proposals, and you will learn about that too, and how farming.
We need a whole hour weekly bed just to cover Yash's ideas and proposals. One day we'll do that.
Yeah. So the thing I'm trying to say is, that's what we are telling, the environmentalists are telling. Why don't you use your own mantra? What gets measured is what gets managed. Measure how much water you are using and tell us how you are quantifying that. And that is now a call to all the big tech companies to actually tell us how much water they are using every single day, and what an impact is that. If you are not measuring the water you are using, how will you know what kind of an impact are you having? So their own philosophy of measurable, quantifiable metrics, they are not using when it comes to environment, when it comes to gender bias,
so
when it comes to
there was this call for sustainability on technology industry to measure how much electricity they're using from non-renewable sources. I remember when I was in PayPal almost 10 years back, and we were like very proud. This one building of ours has solar panels, and then it produces enough for us, and we don't draw, energy from the grid, and at least for that building. And then we started improving our data centers, and there was this beautiful ad from Apple, and I try to be very agnostic to brands, but I like cute things. So this was Apple's ad about how they are reaching they on various different aspects of their business that it's sustainable as in energy sources. So if you now go start measuring water, that would be an interesting thing, especially nobody thinks of software. And we talk about GPU power, we talk about the cloud, and that it is stored in some data centers, and they run on energy, and they may think electricity, right? even if you think about it. But to say that they're drawing water is so scary.
Yeah.
Right. And so that'll be interesting. Maybe John will talk to that topic in John Haven's.
John actually will be covering that topic, especially talking about aquifers and how much water ChatGPT uses and what it is doing to the communities where the data centers are being built.
Yeah.
And how companies are almost hiding that information, and now they are being called out on it and asked to measure it so that we can manage it.
Yeah.
So that's the whole.
So talk to me about the gender bias piece, because I wanted to close out because we're going past the hour, but I want to make sure that this gender bias across languages is uniform, that unites all of us. I'm sure there are some Amazonian language out there where it is the other way around. I would like to go check it out. But
because gender is a social construct that affects all of us. So of course it will have its impact in all languages. The languages that we speak will also have the gender bias. And the last time, I believe, we compared between Bari and Tamil language and how
no,
gender.
we did Bari
and
Brazilian Portuguese, Bari, and Tamil are the three languages.
Compared three languages.
Compared in last year's poster.
Yeah, and this year I think we will build upon that and show how maybe even include more languages. If we have the time to do it, we will actually include more languages and show how gender as a construct is defined across languages and how it is used to discriminate implicitly as well as explicitly in many cases. So I think that would be interesting to see what we bring to the table.
Then I pitch for Kannada. So if you can cover Kannada also, it will be great.
That's awesome.
Okay, sure, we will do that.
And Susanna has helped us figure out how to do research in a very simplistic way, because it's wonderful to talk about high and mighty ideas or to get angry about things that's left behind. We don't want to be the typecast angry women in there. And so she took the word for women for multiple words for women, right? Even in English, we're based on different age, whether you're married or unmarried, you're a miss and mrs and maiden and widow, and all those things are there. So like that, we got words for meaning women, the female gender, essentially, in various language, in 3 languages. And the thing that struck me was, I think Yash did this research where she wanted to remove gender bias from Kannada language in last year's poster. And when you actually do this, thank you. When you do the translation back to English, when you do the machine translation, it brings it back. It brings the bias back. So even if you comb the language and say, now we are going to remove bias.
Yeah, actually, when we were there at New York, somebody who I forgot what the language was, and he was saying that they don't have any gender. It was an African language and they don't have any gender. But when they were trying to translate that or bring that translation data set to English, it brought gender back. Because English is a very gender based. So they have no gender. This is like somebody cooked food. I mean, it's like saying somebody cooked the meal in our house. But when they translate it to English, it says she cooked food.
So
here's he cooked food.
I find that very fascinating. When I learn a Romance language like Italian or Spanish, they have gender, right? For everything, like even things are gendered, right? So, la mesa, table is a female, right? And they have names that will end in a A or a O sound based on whether it is female or male. So you tend to think those languages are biased because they have gender in them. And English has this neutral gender, it's a he, she, or it. But then when you do the translation back, it is not the language that is biased, right? It's not the original language, words, and semantics that is biased. It's the people who have been speaking, who's created the training data from biased society. And so we are kind of bringing back 1800s back into our world if we are going to take that kind of language. So that's kind of my problem. So one example I'll tell you, and those of you, I keep calling you out, if you work in Zoom, you have to fix this. So Zoom does the summary of this meeting, right? And I'm trying that out. And Yash came in and talked to me And so we were talking and I said, Yash, you did this, that. And then I deleted it. I refused to send anything that sounds so buggy when I share it out with Weekly Wed audience. That's why you're not seeing the transcript coming to you, because it did an amazing job of capturing our conversation, but thought Yash was a male because it just, thought that. And then at some point it figured out I'm a female. And then it had a summary of my talk one day, and then I had a frustration with Restream connecting and not live streaming. Thank you, Restream, it's working today. But it had a paragraph about technical difficulties, and Sudha talked to Pariya and all that stuff, and then decided to have a paragraph about Sudha's emotion. And said, it actually called the summary of Sudha's emotion. I'm like a very excitable electron at the edge of an atom. I'm full of emotions. And so it's not just when I'm frustrated, but it had a paragraph about my Sudha's emotion. She was frustrated. She was very thankful to Pariya for helping this and whatever. And I was like, are you saying that because you think I'm female, or where is this coming from? And didn't like it. So those of you working in Zoom or have friends in Zoom, please tell them to fix this, because I will continue to use that and share this with the world only when it is unbiased. Okay, so do you have any last words of wisdom? And then we can close out, guys.
I mean, I'm good. I think everybody please do join us there and click on that Eventbrite link that has been shared. So if you are coming in person, we like to know. And if you are going to be attending virtually also, we like to know. So that Eventbrite link is for both.
Yeah.
So it would be, I think it will be a very enlightening experience for you to hear from different perspectives. So this is not a traditional big tech workshop or panel that we are presenting here, but we are actually bringing you use cases that you never heard of in using generative AI and large language models, and to the benefit of society. So it would be interesting for you to come and join us there.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is, we do have a Global South in AI on LinkedIn, but I have the live stream capability from my personal live stream and also from Business School of AI. So everything we are streaming here on Weekly Wed goes to Business School of AI. So if you follow Business School of AI, automatically you'll get the live stream. If you follow me also, you will get more than this live stream. You'll get a lot more live stream. So watch out if that's the amount of volume of information that you want. I just put the Eventbrite link on LinkedIn also. So if you guys are coming or people coming, please send them that link. The easiest way is if you follow Business School of AI, we will bring you the live stream. And for those of you who are regulars on Weekly Wed, we are not going to have another Wednesday session, because that's when we are in New Rips. And we are going to do the live stream on Monday, December 11th for you. So if you're in person, come talk to us. It'll be amazing. If you're at New Rips, if you're not, then I'll try and bring the live stream from there on December 11th. And then we have this from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock. So it's a long session. And then we run to the other end somewhere else in the convention center. And then they have the poster sessions. So I'll try and do some videos of the poster sessions and then try to compile it and bring it to you as, a follow-up later. So that's the plan before we go off for the holidays. After that, we are going off into the Christmas break. So we will not be talking to you till the new year. So I just wanted to make sure that we do this. Okay, so with that, we'll wrap up. And I'm going to be sending out one last Jamte newsletter, and I am going to try and do the Sudha Live by Friday, because again, Friday, I'm going to be speaking at Google at their developer group. So I'm going to bring something interesting. They also said there's no live stream. So trying to figure out how to sneak in or what will I do. But I'm going to bring you Sudha. So I'll see you back at Sudha Live, and then we'll see you at New Rips on December 11th. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate it. Thanks, and stay safe.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Let me stop the live stream first before I close the meeting. That would be the right thing.